All right, so you're a professional barber. You either been in a commission shop or you've been renting a chair for some time, but now you're getting that itch, right? You're saying, you know what? I could own a barbershop. I want to open up a barbershop. I got my own ideas and visions for a barbershop. Well, let's talk about what it takes to actually make that happen. So what does it take to go from behind the chair, right? You've been renting or you've been in a commission shop for some time, you've built your clientele up, and you decide now is the time, for me to have my own shop. This is something that comes up with a lot of barbers, you know what I mean? And it's doable, but it's some things that you should be thinking about prior to making that leap, because I've seen a lot of barbers have success, but I've seen a lot of barbers struggle because there's certain things about that next level in business that they are not aware of. Only if they were aware of these things, their probability of success would be a lot higher, right? So let's talk about it. So for me, I was actually 5 years professional. I was renting a chair at a shop, right, for 5 years prior to me opening up my own shop. And so for me, my desire to open up a shop all had to do with I wanted to do something that I felt like hadn't been done and wasn't being done in a shop. I wanted to have a larger shop than what I was used to. I was in a 6-chair shop. I wanted to have a 10-chair shop, right? I had the name figured out. I had the atmosphere or the culture figured out. I just knew how I wanted to go about it, right? Didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew what I wanted. And it was one of those things where I thought about it every time I went to work. I would say probably around year 3. Like every time I would go to the shop, I'm thinking about what I could do differently, right? What would make, a shop that much more exciting to be in? What would make people come into the shop and be like, wow, I just love this place, man. This looks beautiful. It's nice in here. And just be excited about being there, right? And I feel like when you wake up thinking about something and go to sleep thinking about something, it's probably something that you need to do, right? And so, but these are some of the things that you need to think about when you get ready to open up a shop. How long have you actually been behind the chair? And what has your growth and success looked like during this time? Are you a barber that's sought after in your shop? Are you a barber that's sought after in your city, right? Or are your books not so booked, right? Are you still kind of struggling to build your clientele? If it's the latter, then you probably are not ready to open up a shop. But if you are a sought after barber, you have already made a name for yourself in the community, then you may be ready to take that next step, right? That's the first thing you need to be thinking about. Second thing, is there a demand, that will support a new shop in your area? Are you looking to open up a shop that's close to the shop that you're already in? Are you looking to go to a whole nother community, another neighborhood in your city? Have you done your due diligence, right, on if that area is actually has a demand for the services that you want to provide, right? Oftentimes, people, they want to go open up a shop and they don't know nothing about demographics or anything like that, and they just go get a space somewhere and open up a shop, and it's full of old retired people, right, that could care less about getting a haircut. So now you have to create, clientele. And if you don't know anything about marketing and branding and getting yourself out there to a new community, you might struggle with getting clientele. So is the area you're looking about moving to, or thinking about moving to, or having a shop in, is there demand there, right? That's something that you definitely want to think about. Another thing you want to think about, what is it going to take for you to build a team? Do other barbers like you, right? Are you somebody that other barbers are going to want to work with, right? That's something that you want to ask yourself as well. One thing that I recommend you not doing, right, is trying to woo other barbers in the shop that you're in to come work with you. I think that that's something that it's not cool. It's not fair. If you open up a shop, cool. If you let people know I'm going to open up a shop, cool. But if you're having conversations, behind the owner's back and trying to get people, man, you should come work with me, I'm going to be doing this. I don't think that that's cool. We all in the same game, and there's ethics and ways to do things, and that's not the way to do it. Okay? Now, if they choose later to come work with you, fine. But you shouldn't be advertising, to the team, trying to pull people away. Remembering that shop owner put work into building that shop, right? He put work into building that team, and it's not cool for you to try to build your shop off the work that's already been done. Quick break, guys. So if you're a new barber or even a barber that's been in the game for a while and you're feeling like you're a little stuck, you're feeling like there's another level that you want to attain. So I'll be talking about the 5 mistakes that barbers make when it comes to scaling their business. So click the link in the description below so you can sign up, and I look forward to seeing you guys there. Let's get back to the content. Make sure that you're not going about it that way, but have some integrity about yourself. So the next thing you should be thinking about is what is it going to cost you, right? You should be able to sit down and start to figure out, what is this going to cost me to actually start up my shop, right? And this is something that is valuable to understand, because it might be one thing to start the shop, but what is it going to cost you to maintain the shop? 2 different things. And I think one thing that barbers oftentimes misjudge is what if things don't go as planned? What if you go, you've opened up your shop, right? And you're expecting for it to go well, but it doesn't, right? You're expecting for certain barbers to come work with you, but they don't, right? You're expecting for the community to support you, and you're going to have full books, but you don't. Then what, right? Do you have the funds, the working capital set aside to make sure that your business can run until those things actually do happen? This is a big mistake that a lot of barbers make when they go and open up a shop, is they don't understand the difference between startup costs and working capital, right? And so you got to make sure that if things go the worst, you still can stay in business. That's why you see a lot of shops have grand opening and grand closing, is because they didn't plan for the worst case scenario, right? So I suggest that you sit down and you figure out, what is the best case and worst case scenario if I go ahead and make this move, right? And can you handle the worst case scenario? Okay. So another thing to think about if you're planning on making that move is all the things that come along with shop ownership. Are you ready to deal with those things? Sometimes you don't know until you actually get into it, right? You don't know until you actually start dealing with people on that level. Something that I learned as a shop owner is that there's a thin line between being a manager and being an owner, or being a coworker and being an owner. Most barbers that go and open up shops, they work in the shops as well, right? I actually suggest that out the gate, because you're able to establish the culture of the shop. You're able to be an example, a live example of how you want the shop to run, how you want barbers to conduct themselves in the shop. Like, you can be that live example for that, right? But you have to understand that it's always business and never personal. So you don't get in the habit of allowing barbers to do things, right, that are not conducive to your business success. And I've seen that happen, because it's a tough conversation a lot of times when you work in the shop and you have to correct somebody on something, or you have to have that talk with somebody, on something that they're not doing correctly in the shop, right? It could be a tough conversation. And if you aren't respected highly, by the barbers that you brought on, it can be a conflicting situation, right? So you have to be mindful. Are you ready to deal with what comes with being a owner or manager, right? Because I promise you, man, like, they'll look at you as, oh, you work with us? That's one hat. But when you got to put that owner hat on, you know what I mean, and put your foot down, it could be a tough situation sometimes. So are you willing and ready to deal with that portion? All right. And if you've never managed before, it could be a crash course. All right. While you have all the right intentions and you feel like you're doing all the right things, people will test you. People will test you. And if you've never really been in a position to hire people, you don't know what it's like to really vet people. They're quick to put their best foot forward to get in the door. But once they're in the door, man, you really can find out, as time reveals all things, you know what I'm saying? And so, you'll quickly find out that the person that you hired may not be the person that you thought they were. And that's just a part of, being in business sometimes, but you have to be ready for that. All right. As a shop owner, I would say, making sure that you understanding the ins and outs of just business in general and business fundamentals in general, knowing, what structure you want to run your shop in is very important. What is it that you're really looking to get out of being a shop owner? Sometimes people want to own a shop just to say they own a shop, right? But aren't really prepared to take on all the business elements that come along with being a shop owner, right? If you're not into, again, managing, if you're not into maintaining and making sure, like inventory and things of those natures are in place and tracked, you're going to be in for a lot. And if you don't have a team to support you in those things, and you don't really have a desire to deal with those things, you can find yourself in a spot that you really don't want to be in. So I would say, like, if you've been comfortable renting a chair, if you've been comfortable, being a part of a team, and you don't really care for all those other small, intricate things, you might want to stay away from shop ownership, because it's a barbershop, but it is a business, and there's a lot that comes along with it. Are you able to deal with clients when they have something, a review, or they have a complaint? Excuse me. Are you ready to deal with clients when they have a bad review, or they have complaints about one of your barbers? Do you know how to deal with that in a way that's going to be conducive to your business still having a good name or rapport, right? Or are you going to take the barber side every time a client has something to say, or are you going to take the client side every time they have something to say? Like, you got to know how to properly judge those and deal with those situations. Me personally, I've had many times where I had to say, okay, let me investigate, and see exactly what's going on, because you will hear client first, or customer's always right. That's not always the truth, but there's a way to handle that to where the situation doesn't get out of hand, that it doesn't go down a road that it doesn't need to go down. But you need to let the client know that you were there to at least get an understanding of where they're coming from. What can we do to make this right? Even though they might be wrong, right? But really, just sometimes people just want to be heard. They want to know that you actually heard them out, right? And then you have sometimes where the barber just is not living up to expectations, right? And you have to know, which one is which, right? And when they're not living up to expectations, you have to be willing and able to sit down and have a conversation, a constructive conversation, to where that doesn't get blown out of proportion as well. And on that note, knowing when to cut someone off, right? Knowing when to fire somebody is not the easiest thing to do. I will say knowing when to fire them probably is the easiest thing to do, but actually executing it is not always the easiest thing to do, right? I found out those type of people, if you don't get rid of them quick, and because they're not serving the shop the way that they need to, they're not being productive the way that they need to, they're not living up to the standard or culture and brand that you're creating, you cannot give them a whole bunch of chances. You just can't do it. You give them an opportunity and say, hey, man, this is what's going on. You know what I'm saying? This is what we're expecting. If you cannot do this, I'm going to have to let you go. Simple as that, right? I think sometimes we can be a little bit too lenient. I'll say I have, in my experience, I've been too lenient at times. And what that can do, it can really start to challenge the morale of the shop and the culture that you're looking to build. So I say, don't allow, one apple to ruin the bunch, as they say. Cut the cancer off as quick as possible. You'll feel a lot better. The crew will feel a lot better, right? The atmosphere will be a lot better. So these are all things that need to be thought about. When you think about, okay, I'm gonna go open up my shop. I'm ready. Are you? Have you thought about all these different things that I just spoke about? And there's many more, right? But these are a few off top that you need to be thinking about if you're considering being a shop owner.